This is a Tesla Model 3. Now, it may have been on sale in the US for some time, but it's only just now coming to the UK. In fact, customers should have them as soon as July. So we've taken one out. It's still in left-hand drive because the UK ones haven't quite arrived yet. But we wanted to answer some of your questions about this car. You sent them to us on Instagram, and we're going to answer them. What is the range? Well, Tesla says this will get up to 329 miles on a full charge, but obviously that is completely dependent on how you drive the car. What is the interior cabin noise? Well, that's the biggest difference between this and any other car you're going to drive. Because it's electric, it is so much quieter than any other car. I mean, that's obvious. There is a faint whine in the background. It felt like there was a tiny police car just at the edge of hearing going. And in an internal combustion engine car, for the kind of acceleration that this car can deliver, you would hear a roar in a normal car. You don't. In fact, the only thing you're likely to hear is your passenger scream a little bit. Is it comfortable? Well, in terms of the cabin and the seats, yeah, pretty comfortable actually. But in terms of the drivetrain, well, because the acceleration can be so fierce and so harsh, and the regenerative braking can be, well, so useful and impactful, it does end up being that you put your foot down and it's back, and then you lift off and it's forward. And that can get a little bit irksome. I had to take it out of sport mode in city driving because, well, it was just a little bit too harsh. And I'm the kind of person who always keeps a car in sport mode. Is it more comfortable than a 3 Series? No, I think BMW's got a little bit more experience on the seats department, and it creates a cabin that is just a nicer place to be for a car person, because you're taking in all the other parts of it that make driving fun, and maybe I'm bleeding some of that into comfort in my mind, but for me, a BMW still has the edge on comfort. When are they making an estate version? Well, when was the last time companies brought out a new estate version of anything? If you've been paying attention to the car industry, SUVs are king of the hill, and Tesla already has the Model X, so I don't see it happening anytime soon. Is it a heavy car? Well, it's an electric car, and there's no getting around the fact that electric cars are powered by batteries, and batteries are heavy. So for a car of this size, it is heavy. Now, you don't notice it on the acceleration because that electric engine is so powerful it just throws you forward. Where you do notice it though is under braking, because although this has a futuristic engine, it has normal brakes. The initial push on the brake doesn't do anywhere near as much as you'd like it to, and it needs a firm push. On your first go out in this car, you might be inclined to stop a little bit further down the road than you were hoping, so it's something to keep an eye on. M2 competition or Model 3? M2 competition, because Carfection. This has a track mode in it. They have built this with the mindset that you are going to enjoy yourself. You're going to take it out and get a bit of a thrill, but come on, it's not an M2 competition, is it? Now, it wasn't a question that any of you actually asked, but it's one that I would like to have answered, and that is, how well does the Autopilot work in a Model 3? Well, I'm about to join the motorway here. Let's see how it does. So, engage it. Please keep your hands on the steering wheel. It doesn't like it if you completely remove your hands. So I'm just lightly touching the wheel. I'm not actually gripping it in any shape or form. I've got the Navigate on Autopilot feature turned on, which is still in beta at the moment, but that will actually look at where I'm going in the sat-nav and make decisions. Right, this car's wanting to merge here on the left. So, yeah, okay. So completely of its own volition, the Model 3 just braked to let in that Volkswagen Caddy. The thing is that I'm not finding this a very relaxing mode. You have to be as engaged as you would be if you're actually driving, but the car is doing the actual work for you. Now the question is, I'm meant to be coming up to a junction. The car should navigate off the junction for me.
Now take the 841 exit on the left.
Nope, couldn't get it to do it. Oh well, it is still in beta, so I can forgive it for that. So the short answer is the Autopilot does do its job. It is better than adaptive cruise control to a certain extent, but in terms of the limitations of how you can use it in Europe, it's still not quite the autonomous driving that we're hoping we might get one day. But, you know, baby steps. If I was spending my own money, would I buy one? In this performance spec, the Model 3 will cost about £46,000. Now obviously you offset that by not paying as much in petrol, but you will be paying for the electricity to charge it. So swings and roundabouts. For the amount that I drive my own personal car, it wouldn't be worth it because, well, spoiler alert, I work at Carfection. I get access to lots of different cars. I don't drive my own car, a little Golf, that often. How is the legroom? Well, up front it's the same as you'd get on any car, and in the back, well, let's just say it's very slightly smaller than the Model S, but sufficient to get a couple of adults back there. How is the build quality? Well, Tesla are improving their manufacturing process generation by generation of cars, and from this test model, the build quality seems absolutely fine. It's hard to tell though until thousands and thousands of these roll out into British shores, and we have to kind of take the mean of what the build quality has been like across all of them. But this one feels pretty solid. How are the ergonomics? Well, from the driving perspective, you aren't given really any physical switches bar the stalks for your gear selector and your indicator and windscreen wipers and these two little thumb controllers here. Everything else is through the screen. And as we've seen with like Porsche's new interface, when you have to use the screen to do things like change the angle of the vents, that can become quite tedious. It is very slick, it does look very nice. It can take a little bit of time to find the right menu item. There are just buttons for everything, and when there's a special button to open the glove box, well, that does seem to be taking it a little bit too far. Is the stuck-on tablet as bad as it looks in pictures, or is it better? Well, if you remember from the Model S, which had this huge upright tablet-style screen right here, this feels more stuck on than that does, to be fair. Because it's so much wider than the central console it's overlapping with, it does feel like the screen has been protruding out at you. The quality of it is incredible. The resolution and the responsiveness I cannot fault. Would a head-up display make sense? Yes, to a certain extent, because it would put some of the things like your speed right in front of you. But the point is, this car is trying to do those things for you. It's hopefully pointing to a future where you don't need to worry about the speed whatsoever because the car worries about it. So yes, today, from a practical point of view, it would be nice to have your speed there, but not strictly necessary. Does the white interior easily get dirty? All white interiors easily get dirty. It's how easy they are to clean. That's the tricky part. Yeah, a white interior is always going to pick up dirt. And if you've got kids like me, this is not the color you should go with. To be honest, no matter how easy it is to clean. What is it like driving without a speedo directly in front of you? Well, I didn't have to wait until I drove this car to find out. I mean, for those of you who remember when BMW built their first Mini, the speedo was right there in the middle. And cars like the BMW Z8 have had dials spread out all across the dash. So no, you don't really mind. Is it a car you can find pleasure in driving? Well, that depends on what floats your boat, really. I am the kind of person who can quite get a giggle out of that immediate thrill of acceleration. It's little thrills though. Is it an overall warm sense that every moment of driving it is incredibly special and something you want to savor? Well, no. Can it do a handbrake turn? No. It has no handbrake. This or the I-Pace? Well, the I-Pace is very much a different shape. This is trying to come in at the bottom of the market. And the I-Pace, well, the I-Pace is a Jag and it markets itself on that Jag quality, build quality. For me, it would be this over the I-Pace, but that's mainly a budget thing. Do you get used to no sound? Yeah, you do. You get used to anything. I've driven lots and lots of Rolls Royces for long periods of time, and you quite quickly settle into the fact that you can't hear as much as in a normal car. How's the daily practicality? Well, there's plenty of room for kids and stuff in the back, and the boot, although it has a weird aperture because of the sloping glass roof, it's actually quite sizable. So in terms of getting luggage in there, yeah, you've got a lot you can put away. In terms of practicality, the range isn't really an issue. Most people's commute is less than 6 miles per day, and you're very unlikely to regularly do more than 200 miles in a single day. So for the kind of driving we do in the UK, yeah, on day-to-day practicality, it scores pretty well. When you drive it sportily, will the battery overheat? Well, Tesla's been working really hard on thermal management, and the Model 3 has its very latest generation of that. So apparently, I've been told no. How well does it handle in the corners? Well, for a car of its weight, remarkably well. Considering how quickly it can accelerate, if it couldn't hold on through the corners, you could get yourself in trouble pretty damn quickly. So having the ability to grip really well and for the car to feel planted and flat through the corners is a good thing. Does it deserve all the hype? Well, that kind of depends. If you're the kind of person who's buying into the whole Tesla mindset and the idea that electric cars are the future and that really this is the only kind of car we should be buying, then yeah, it's a more affordable version of some of the electric cars that we've seen before. As a car person though, who really likes to drive, then no, it's lacking in that aspect. And for you as a Carfection viewer, you might agree with me on that. But it is a good car. How tunable is it? Well, as far as cars go, not very. I mean, there's obviously some settings you can change, and there are people who are going to mess around with it under the hood, but in terms of people like you or me taking it to our homes and pulling it apart and putting it back together, not so much. Right, there you have it. Some of the answers to some of your questions about the Tesla Model 3. If you have any more questions, you can leave them in the comments below and we'll try to answer them as best we can. The car will be coming to UK customers in a couple of months and hopefully we can have it in to do a much more in-depth review closer to then. But for now, it's goodbye and whee!